Sometimes all that it takes is a simple effect to add a huge impact to your video. Like right here, where it looks like I moved from over there to here in a single camera shot. What? I've been playing around with this effect in a lot of my recent videos, and it's really fun. It's pretty simple to do, so I thought I would share with you how I do it. So for example, in some of the recent comparison videos that I've made, I've shown one object transitioning into another while the camera does one smooth, continuous movement. If you have a motorized camera slider, that's like the perfect thing for this. But if you don't, it's okay. I don't have a motorized slider, so I've been using the DJI Ronin S because that accommodates a full-size camera to get the best image quality. But as long as you have anything that lets you set camera tracking, so if you have a gimbal, like the DJI Osmo Mobile for your phone, or anything kind of like this for a phone or a DSLR that lets you set tracking points, that's all that you need. So this isn't a tutorial for a specific gimbal or a specific piece of equipment. This is to explain how to do this technique. So all that you need is something that lets you set tracking points for your camera. And the key here for the entire effect is that the camera must make exactly the same move multiple times. So that's why you need tracking points so that the camera duplicates the exact same moves every time. And that's just not something you can do by hand. Even if you try really hard, trust me, I've done it and I failed at it repeatedly. It's also a good idea to use controlled lighting so that your lighting conditions don't change over time. And then it's really important to remember that once you have your camera and your light set up, not to move anything until you're totally done filming. So all you need in order to do this is to set up your camera and then use whatever app comes with your gimbal or your slider to set your tracking points. And then once you have that camera movement set up, you just record it repeatedly for different objects. So for example, in last week's video, I talked about 2 different camera bags, and all that I did was I set up one shot with one camera bag, and then I set up a second shot with the other camera bag, and then I just cut those 2 shots together. And that's the most simple way to do this. It's also a good idea to get what's called a clean plate, which means you just let the camera record without anything in the frame. So that way, if you want stuff to totally disappear and totally reappear, it's much easier to do that because you have a blank background shot. And then once you've got everything filmed, the next step is to drop it all into your video editor. And I'm sure that there's probably a more technically correct way to do this, but I like to keep things simple. So all you need to do in your editing software is put one clip on top of the other and try to get them to match up exactly. What I have found is helpful is to lower the opacity on the top clip to maybe like 70%, and then you can kind of see more easily when they line up because everything will become really, really clear. Once you've got them lined up perfectly, then you can increase the opacity back to 100%. And now since they're perfectly aligned, you should be able to just cut back and forth between those 2 clips as much as you want, and everything should match up really, really smoothly. And of course, you can do this with more than 2 objects. You can do this with any number of things, depending on what you're using, the gimbal, the slider, the whatever. Some are better at replicating movements than others. Some things, like I do know with the Ronin S, if I try to do the same movement 10 times, there are little variations that make it tough to match up. But if I'm only doing it 2 or 3 times, it usually lines up pretty perfectly. And since this entire effect is based on using just simple cuts, it should work in any editing software. If you use Final Cut Pro like I do, I did make a video about some of the tips and techniques I use to really improve my workflow, so I definitely recommend that you check that out, and I'll see you over in that video. I think I'm wearing the same thing in that video.